Wait, is that a Karen Burger? Oh, look at these cute packs. Look at that. That's nice. I gotta hand it to you. Invent and more Blink. Oh, you got all the books I should have read or whatever instead actually. Oh, look at that. Rolex. Holy shit. The American.
Hey, Julio, nice to meet you.
Robert,
I've
so
seen you in video, so
50 Cent.
All right, quiet on a sec,
one
guys.
time, maybe.
Is this Aganorsa for real?
Yeah. Good cigar, right?
Yeah, it is. It's better than what I smoked from them. You know?
It's an old school blend.
It's a cacique from. No, I don't fucking. Fucking know. It's all right. Well, I'm doing this too fucking long. Too fucking long. Business.
So, Ernesto, the bad boy of cigars, is in the building with us.
I don't know what's so bad. I think I'm great.
You are great.
You know? Remember
lost
when
some
you.
weight too, man. Good for you.
Trying, yeah.
Good.
Living too good down there in the Keys.
Yeah. So what's life in the Keys like?
Fucking great.
Yeah, I see you have no socks on, so you're
Yeah.
very. You
This is like the most I dressed up, man. Like seriously. Like I even like. I was like.
You wore pants.
Yeah, I wore. No, dude, I haven't worn pants in like fucking. I can't even. Since March, I don't.
Wow. So tell us about what's going on with
Yeah.
Padilla Cigars.
Oh, look at that watch. I already have a watch anymore.
Yeah.
nice.
What's going on with Padilla?
A lot's been going on, man. The thing is, what's been going on with Pravada, man? I left it for like a second there. I was like, oh, fuck this cartoon shit. You know, by the way, my cartoon should be turned over or whatever. People watching this is like, oh, I thought Padilla hated.
We're gonna let you turn it over.
Oh, all right, okay, all right. And I get a free hipster hat. By the way, these hats. Yeah,
You
it's,
can
it's
turn
about
that
time.
over.
Let me see.
Since you came to
You know
business,
what?
you just flip it
Give me a
around.
pen. Give me a pen. Give me a pen.
There you go.
Yeah, this is. This,
Wow. Oh, that's right. You are an artist. You are an artist.
you know what I mean? Every parent's like, you know.
I love that.
I don't know if we're some money.
That's awesome. Turn it over so I can see.
You know?
Show it to the camera when you're done.
There you go. A real original with the,
I love it.
you know. Yeah, now they're gonna do their own. Hey, bro, it's Espinosa, bro. I ain't fucking trying no shit, bro. I get this shit.
Did you see
There's a call. I'm gonna do the call one. Just take off my whole shirt.
Did you see
Hey, I
Sandy's
can't, oh my
picture?
God, this is unbelievable. Ernie, I can't get you any more cigars.
And then Terrence, I should have worn khakis in honor of Terrence. Terrence has like a full-on like sponsorship by Dockers, right? He's bringing back that Casual Friday 1998 forever. He's so in. I think like Chanel is calling him to do Fashion Paris, like the Normcore. Is that back now?
I don't know.
Terrence is coming back. No, Terrence is a great guy. He's like, I don't know. Terrence is too thin for the cigar business. First off, right?
Yes.
Like there's no like there's like
Rainier's pretty thin too.
Rainier's, yeah, he'll be 300 pounds next week. He'll be like Nick Perdomo 2002 in no time.
Was he
you
heavy
know?
back then?
Nick
Nick
Perdomo?
Perdomo,
Oh my God.
Really?
Now let me tell you,
Oh my God.
that was Nick. Get the fuck out of here. By the way, I'm thin for the cigar business. It's hard to like, you know, you're like I'm like anorexic for the cigar business now compared to like, you know how it is. This weird guy. Who else we got? Oh, then you got the Blackbird Bodega. I don't know who the Blackbird Bodega guy is. I feel like I should be coming in buying some more. Hey, bro, what you got? You're gonna get the pan? You're gonna get the bread over there?
Bro.
You know, hey, yeah, like the Bronx or whatever. Who's that? Oh, that's Rainier over there. He looks like that. Looks like the Wham George Michael album cover thing. And this guy, your Room 101, they love that guy. It's like who is that guy over there?
This guy?
Yeah.
Paul Stulak, your favorite.
Oh, I never met that Canadian guy.
No,
He's so
yeah.
Canadian. He's so
Yeah,
nice.
He is very
You're gonna be like, I'm gonna cut up your dog and throw it on your plate. He's like, you know, he might like that. He's going through a depression. He's a really nice guy. Nice guy, yeah. That's nice. So J.C. Newman, oh wow, it's unbelievable.
So tell us about your latest release. What's we've lost touch for a little bit here.
And you got, you know, originally I was gonna do this for this club. So I was coming up here to meet with someone, and I said, you know, let me call this guy up, because I'm a dick, he's a dick. It's my opinion. You know, everybody's like, you know, Team Brian, this guy, this thing. It's like, This is fucking cigars, dude.
Mm-hmm.
I don't give a flying fuck. We're selling rolled up leaves at the end of the day. And it takes a lot of work and a lot of resources and the people who do it down there and all this shit. It's a tremendous amount. It really is. Besides all the we don't even have to market the bullshit that people spew because the product itself takes so much. Yeah. It really does. The people I've met, I know you met some people, you know, names that you might have all known. But there's some old fucking school Cuban motherfuckers who are down in Ecuador, where a lot of the rappers from, you know, in the valley, that are like, okay, stop irrigating. And it's like bright, sunny fucking day, right? And they're like, but the weather, no. I feel the barometric pressure. We think that sexiness is like, you know, it sounds great, but it's actually true. A lot of times they do it. And a lot of times technology, where there's the heavy John Deere tractors that dig too deep into the soil. Sometimes the fucking ox just fucking works better. Like, you can't improve on it. Sometimes on certain things. There's other things in the curing barns today. Placentia came up with this system, and it controls the humidity as it translates, and you can make some upgrades. But the fact is that, I don't know, maybe, I don't know. I guess I fell in love with the romanticism of it because that's where my family actually did. And then every motherfucking Cuban, they're like, oh, my family grew through. Fuck, you got a plant on the corn here. The fuck out of it. You can look it up. You can do the whatever.
So, I mean, that was like, you know, real talk. Like, that was something that I always got from talking to you, is that there was a little bit of a disappointment as to where the industry kind of went during the boutique boom or boutique time, or, you know, the last 20 years of the cigar industry. We kind of call that the boutique time, you know?
The last 20 years, I mean, somewhat. It kind of like it, you know. Now we're in the. You're watching this. Who's the fuck is this Padilla fucker? Padilla. Papora, whatever. Padilla.
Next time we got to work here. Padilla.
Padilla, that Padilla guy. Padilla guy. That's fine. I don't give a fuck as long as the check clears. You know?
Tell me about you got started working with Pepin, correct?
For Finn Garcia, when nobody, that's the thing. That's like the other,
Were you with him before Pete?
Right when we started, at the same time, I was working at Perdomo. I came from the advertising world, the creative world, and this is like 2000. And my father was a visiting professor at Auburn University. He had taught at Yale. He had done it. He's an intellectual, different thing. Real cigar smoker. Him on the cover of Time magazine, smoking cigars. The Padilla 88 we came out with, there's him with Hemingway. It's a little bit too intellectual for the average motherfucker, you know. Davidoff tried to play in that world, but they never like. I'm like, you got Winston Churchill and you don't work with that shit on the next level? No, your marketing department sucks. Let's go. Elevate the whole business. That's what I want. Elevate the whole business is what I'm talking about. Be proud to be in. I'm not selling Marlboro Reds. I'm selling something that you're spending real money on, that you get excited about, that there's a motherfucker there that speaks to you in like 4 words. Like, I can speak to Spanish, you know what it's hey, Bobby, but that motherfucker really is like, you know, I was the other day, there was something there with the I was almost like, how do I tell? Usually I don't mince my words. I'm like, you know, like this, but I didn't want to like insult him, and I still wanted to get what I wanted because there was something just not right about one little thing. But I worked with Pepin. I worked with Aganorsa. Aganorsa was teamed up there.
But tell me, so Pepin, Gallo, you guys had a factory together at one point, correct?
We didn't have it together, but I was the first there along with Pete Johnson, Mitchell Hirschover.
Espinosa?
He came later.
Okay.
And that's one of the things that Pete did very well that I didn't know. He had the gringo sauce.
What does that mean?
The gringo sauce is like, you know, they're like, I'm Cuban. I know what the fuck you're saying. You get, you know, I know what you're saying. Gringo sauce is like, since there's a loss in translation, is almost a buffer in my opinion.
Okay.
Pete Johnson's a great guy. He's done great or whatever. And so maybe at that time, you're talking to a guy in his late 20s, never run a business, never fucking done anything. You know, came from the creative world. So, you know, people were like, oh shit, there's a legit factory. I saw, I think what Pete Johnson saw was like, these motherfuckers are making cigars like we like to make, which is the Cuban style. And you go, what's the Cuban style? Well, back, if you were a cigar nerd, if you want to call it that, you know, and if you're a Ferrari nerd, I hate that car in particular, but you just don't put any leather in that car. Everything is scrutinized. You don't do everything is
Would
designed.
that cigar you're smoking have fit in back then to the cigars you were making? Is it comparable to those?
This is actually a good cigar.
I modeled that after
yeah.
your time in the...
Yeah, actually, I got it, not because of anything. I hate the band. I hate the whole fucking garbage pail kids. If it turns on a new consumer base to it, I guess, it helps. I get it. You can't be talking about Cuban lineage. My father smoked this or this and that all the time. So I was like, yeah, so I had to say like, hey, listen, it's a new generation. There's new people, as long as they're enjoying something that is really legit, of the craft, then who freaking cares at the end of the day. But it's gotta be, in my opinion, legit. There's a lot of, what I'm amazed about with this boom? How many new mediocre boutique brands there are. I was like, wow. When I rolled up, and P. Johnson was there, and who else? My father's going, and who were the little boutique guys coming out in my time? This is like 2002, 2003.
Dion?
Yeah, he came in like 2007, 8. They started like poking the bear a little bit. I think I was like, P. Johnson was like, why not?
At the beginning of the boutique movement. What about Tony Barani?
Tony Barani was great. He was actually crazy motherfucker. He was an interesting guy. I called him up one time, and in 2009, I was living in Miami Beach. I know he was in there. He had pretty much exited the business. Bahia was the first true boutique brand to come out. It survived the boom there for a while, and I loved everything about it. The packaging, the limit of it was elevated. It was this, Rocky was trying to be him. Can I say that? Oh shit!
Yeah,
the Rocky attorneys are coming.
So did he make that cigar in Costa Rica, or did the guy...
No. There was a guy called Don Douglas. He had a big hat, a big fucking beard, a cheesemaker from Wisconsin. No joke. Don Douglas is an interesting guy back then, and they went to Costa Rica. I think gringos like the idea of Costa Rica. Like, it sounds sexy.
I don't think that's what it is.
The tobacco sucks.
It's always
sucks.
Yeah, but it's always rumored
sucks.
that they're rolling.
Sucks. If they're whatever, there ain't no fun. It's coffee land. It's coffee land. Hey, okay, whatever. They can rumor up all there. That's bullshit. There was none of that. And then CAO kind of came in with
a guy named Jose.
I don't know, but I mean, I remember back then. It's like we're talking like mid 90s. This is the cigar boom started like 93. Cigar Aficionado came out. Brands like Padron were only selling in Cuban cafeterias. So my father would smoke. My father grew up in the tobacco plantation. What he did, that's what his family did, and what his friends would smoke was Padron. And Padron had a little shitty yellow building. Yeah, well, he was actually off one street off. That building had been there forever, and a long story about all that with the exile community. But him and this other guy Camacho, which is the brand that was bought later on, who passed away, and then the Auroras purchased it. They were kind of like back then. We're talking, the Cuban embargo happens. President John F. Kennedy, everybody knows the story, has his guy, Press Secretary Pierre Salinger, go out there, buy all the H. Upman fucking Coronas up, and then nobody else can have them. Very JFK of him. Later on, I would meet his brother, Ted, who would petition for my father's release. He was a writer in New York in 1980, and he came over. It's kind of ironic. And then actually Ted was instrumental in doing that FDA, which we won't go into. You can research that. It's like kind of ironic because he was actually a cigar smoker. But getting back to it, during that time, the 60s, Cubans were looking for an alternative. There was you have a big exile community coming. The 70s, they were streaming in. It reached a peak like in the 80s. At Padron, there was a war in Nicaragua with these people called the Sandinistas, the communists, against Contras in the 1980s. It was a very tough time, but the Cubans had an insatiable appetite for these cigars. People, when Cuba closed up, really want the whole thing.
Yeah.
Benjamin Mendez, who we've heard of or whatever, they went over to the Canary Islands of Spain, where my family's from, off the coast of West Africa. It belongs to Spain. Canary Islands, a lot of the tobacco growers from Cuba are from that region. Part of my family's Catalan from where Barcelona is, and speaks Spanish. But the other part, the majority of these people came from the Canary Islands because the Spanish brought tobacco to the Canary Islands. And so then they were looking for more opportunity in Cuba. They were like, fuck it, go. And so they went, and at first it was only the crown, the Spanish crown. It's a long story, and they go to Sevilla, and then Carmen, you know, that opera, she was a roller there. You can go into the whole thing. Napoleon's cavalry was really the one who transitioned Europeans from doing snuff, which was you snort it, to riding. Being the cavalry at the time was like the badass. They were like the Navy SEALs of their time. You had to buy your own horse. You're more wealthy or whatever. But you're not gonna be like, you know, snorting tobacco on a fucking horse. What happened was in Cuba, they discovered it when Napoleon came into Spain or whatever, in the Royal Sevilla factory down there, cigars. And it really, that's almost the history of how cigars kind of took over from what Europeans at the time. People think tobacco were Europeans, but it was actually more snuff, which is still very much used. And out of that, actually, the perversion of the actual premium cigar for the poor people working in the factory was born the cigarette, which was rolled out of paper, not a long leaf wrapper with the little leftover things. And there's the famous myth of the ladies rolling things on their thighs. They were bored. It was so hot there, they take out their hair, some bullshit like that. But you fast forward to the Spaniards coming, they discovered, well, it was just Columbus Day, but now it's Indigenous Day, or Don't Offend Anybody Day, or whatever day we got now. Am I canceled now? Am I like Chappelle? I ain't got the Chappelle pool. I just want to offend everybody equally.
So you grew up with cigars around you, obviously. And you started working for Nick Perdomo in the art department or marketing?
Yeah, my father passed away in 2000. I came down. He was a professor and came down to Miami. I was living in Dallas-Fort Worth. I met Nick Perdomo. Not because I was down in Miami. I had a few days before the whole funeral thing happened and all that shit. And my brother was busy. He was older. And so I took his kids to one event for their school, private school. They went where Nick Perdomo's kids at the time were going. I met him. He said, "Oh, come by my office." We started talking. He knew I had a passion for cigars. I knew, I guess, quite a bit about cigars, the history of cigars. And then when I went back to Dallas after everything, I sent him an email. "Hey, if you ever need any help with any stuff, let me know." He said, "Can you come down? Can you fly down and come down?" And people in the ad world were like, "Well, is he paying for this? Is he doing that?" It's like, no, it's fucking cigar. It's just a small thing. And I have family here. I'll come down. He offered me a job. And I really wanted to get in the cigar business. I really looked around after being in advertising. What am I going to do here? Like, I'm a creative guy. My family always wanted. My mom was like, "Oh, you should be a painter." And all that. Like, I like to eat. I like to fucking eat. My father had done great. You know, and I'm even for a prize. Actually, I don't know how the fuck you make a living as a poet or a writer in today's world. It's amazing. Like, that's fucking unbelievable. Oh, okay, well, you do something else, I had. But he did, you know, he worked for the Smithsonian. I didn't even know he taught at Yale and did whatever, but it's a tough gig, man. Artists make the world go round, but yet the world hasn't figured out, you know, what the fuck. You know, we go to Europe to look at the art. We go over the world to look at the art. Nobody goes to look at a strip mall.
Right.
Nobody will look at a fucking strip mall in fucking 500 years. Nobody will fucking care, you know? Right. And anyway, let's not get on that tangent. But
so how long did you work for Perdomo?
I only worked for him for a year, and I wanted to start my own brand. But before I started my own brand, unlike most people I see today, I wanted to find out about the business. It was the tail end of the boom. Cigars are declining. Everybody's like, okay, that's over. A lot of people came in with briefcases. Oh my God, cigars are just like, everybody was smoking cigars. So every celebrity, cigar aficionado, the whole thing. This was the tail end of the boom.
Were you hanging out on 8th Street at all?
No, not really. Well, because when I worked with Nick, there was a guy called Frank El Russo, Frank the Russian. He wasn't Russian. He was a Cuban guy that studied engineering in Russia, but he looked very blonde, and he actually had a Russian wife, and he worked in the yachting thing. He said, "Hey, he thought, there's a guy on 8th Street that you need to see. This guy, he's making the cigars that you will like. You would go, this is the style that you want." And I remember actually I saw a picture of him, Pepeng, who worked for Aganorsa, Eduardo Fernandez. It wasn't called Aganorsa. at the time. Eduardo Fernandez had smart, very intelligent man, Wharton School of Business grad. Him and his brother started a company. Why didn't we do this? Fucking pizza in Spain. Pizza the fucking livery. My man. In the mid 90s, they sold that shit for $500 million. Pizza delivery. If you would have started that in the 80s, I wouldn't be talking to you. I wouldn't have this first shit. I wouldn't have to see him. I wouldn't have to worry about that. We'd be on a yacht. We'd both at hoes. I'd be with like Dave Chappelle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, here I am. Because didn't take advantage of the fucking pizza back then.
So, okay.
Anyway, but him and his brother, he came in when he was 12 years. He's got an amazing story, you know. And I remember being in New York with him, and he invited me to dinner. He just happened to be in New York. I was in New York. We're in the Grand Havana room. He tells me a story. He came with what was called the Peter Pan flights, where the families were like, okay, this communism shit's only going to happen for a year. Then shit's going to change. This is madness. So they literally put their kids on airplanes and sent them to America. Some of them with no family ended up in South Florida. He studied, worked hard. He got into Wharton. His brother also worked hard. And then they opened up this thing called Telepizza in Spain. And they sold it, did very well, but he had a passion for cigars. He went to Nicaragua, he had a lot of money. A lot of people were kind of hating. It's a very small group, a little mafia around there. No, I'll put it back. And so he starts his company in the mid and late 90s. I remember I saw Eduardo come in to the Perdomo office when he first started there. And Eduardo was kind of figuring out the business, if you will, getting the right agronomist. He brought in, you know, some people with right experience, Cubans, this and that, getting the right land. Now in Nicaragua, forget about it. That land is like, you know, they fight over this plot, this whole plot. That whole region is very limited and very rare to find. So I knew enough to say, you don't just go to a little chinchal and you're like, oh, that's cute, you're rolling cigars. Yeah, where are you getting the tobacco? What tobacco? You don't have anything without tobacco. You know, it's just like a slaughterhouse without cows or something. I don't know. That's what feeds it. I go down. Frank the Russian, told me. I go down there. I go to this little place. I did a little video. It shows it there on 8th Street, across the street from where we still make the Padilla in Miami. And I walked in there. There may be 5-6 rollers, and then, you know, Peping, his son, his daughter, kind of there, very small. They were kind of. Peping had been working for Eduardo in Nicaragua doing stuff, and he convinced them to open up a little place, and Eduardo agreed. On 8th Street, they found a place on 8th Street right next to where the old La Gloria Cubana factory was, and their fucking warehouse was a little closet, and they like rolled their hair, like, well, look, and they had like 30 bundles. I'm like, hey, being as now any business guy would tell you, like, what the fuck are you doing? But this isn't marketing. This is like the real fucking shit. Like me saying, I love it. Like, this is fucking amazing. I wasn't thinking, like, really, the glory or whatever. Like, and I see the cigars, and I see that they're triple cap. Nobody's doing that shit back then. And the construction, then Tubalo, all this shit. And then I look at the bales, and I've been around already enough tobacco. And I like, what the fuck? And I'm like, this is amazing. And then there's this guy with this brand called Tatuaje. I go, this motherfucker's crazy. These gringos ain't good. They can't. Like, the first thing of marketing is like, make it like something I pronounce. Like, oh, you know, even if you get esoteric, it's got to be something. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Look at this motherfucker with the tattoo. Like, what? A cool guy. I mean, I don't know. He's from LA and, you know, worked at the Grand Havana room at the time. And then there's a guy like me who worked at Perdomo, and that was it. And I was really amazed that people didn't have the vision. I guess what they saw the business side that I don't think we saw. And the business side would have told you, no, what are you going to produce here? Like, what are you doing? For me, I was like, oh my God, this is fucking amazing. You know, and now, you know, when I work with any factories, I still look for those factories. I go, where are you sourcing tobacco? Things are much more complicated and difficult. It's a million little chinchadas. They're all like this bale or that bale, and then they can't keep a consistent blend and this and that. It's a very challenging time right now.
Okay. And so, how long were you with Pepin for?
We started in 04. I started brand in 03, but radio production started like almost in 04. And we started, the first thing we rolled, I was like, well, what do I call this thing? Well, let's call it what it is. It's a Padilla made in Miami on the corner of 8th Street and 11th Avenue. And that's what I did. And Even cigar aficionado, like there's somebody coming to talk to Ernesto Carrillo next door. We just sold this company, and like General Cigar Company, a big company, had bought that corner, and they're like really nice factory. We had like the fucking hoop-de-doop, fucking ghetto, like Schwinn. All the kids are rolling in with their fucking whatever Japanese bikes. We're like over there, we're like Bad News Bears, fucking some dude from LA with tatuaje, some fucking Cuban dude from fucking New Jersey. What the fuck is this? The fuck is this clan? And I would always try to like, hey, look at us, and he'd come in with his thing, and he had his beer, like, hemming around. So he's like, oh, interesting, Like, motherfucker, there's nothing more to talk about here. This is the shit. You have discovered it. But, I get it. They want to feel it out. They want to see, is this guy going to sustain? This is 2003, 4, And it comes out. Cigar Aficionado decides to do, for the first time, their top 25 cigars of the year, which they've, they own Wine Spectator, so they started this thing. First year, number 25 was Tatuaje. Next year I was on it. I think we got number 13 for the Padilla Miami 11. And then from there, the ratings just, it still mattered. There was no Facebook. There was no whatever. And people were like, whoa, what's going on over there? And we could not make enough fucking cigars. We couldn't package them enough. I was fucking banning cigars. I was like, what do I do? Forecast? Just give me whatever. It was just like, and these cigars are not cheap. These are 10, 15 something dollar cigars. And then I even made an edition, if you can find it. I think Casa Monte Cristo maybe down. New York had one. At that time was $30. A Screw wrapper, 1932 Oscuro, 45 count humidor. 15 of 3 different sizes. It's a shame. It's such a shame that this business has gone into donkey dick size territory. People are missing out. Churchill is this is such a great size. This is a size that I should just do it. Fucking maybe I'll just smoke them all and make them. This is such a fantastic size. It transitions. It moves with you. It's like, that sounds corny, but this is a cigar. 7x46, you see it transition, you see it, here's the full thing of the leaves. I know the Toro, I don't have that much time. Make time! Fight with your wife so you can stick in a fucking place a little longer instead of thing that's this big. This is ridiculous. And then, like 5 5/8 by 46 and the new cigar that just came out. I said, I can't complain and not have it. You're not even giving the customers the option of having it, so what the fuck? And I had it before. I had a Perla that he made for me in a 50 count. That cigar was like $9 back then for a little 4x44, an amazing little cigar. I remember Dave Savono Cigar for nice. Can't get more boxes. And
how long did that last? This Pepin?
In 2008-9, the gig, it was out of the, everybody was like, oh, then you see the these bigger brands circling the wagons, and they wanted to go to Nicaragua and be bigger and do this and do that.
And there was a lawsuit.
Yeah, they I don't want to get into all that because I had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
With all of me, I got no Netflix attorneys over here. They had a parting of the ways. I mean, it's publicized. Eduardo Fernandez and Pepin, they did their thing. But I didn't feel like it was the right place for me anymore. It wasn't really getting done. And I went to the factory that Eduardo Fernandez had because I wanted the consistency of that tobacco. I was more afraid of, guy makes great cigars. We can blend together fantastic. But without the really amazing tobacco, what are you doing? You're like, so went over there and transitioned the Miami over there to, at the time it was called Casa Fernandez. It wasn't called Aganorsa. They and it was, before that it was called Tabacalera Tropical, which he had bought from a guy. So you keep going and whatever. They were trying to find their rhythm. They had great tobacco, great stuff, terrible packaging, terrible marketing. It was like everything. They were fighting with one hand tied behind their back and try to help them best they can. But they were, but he's a smart business guy and he put, I guess, the right people, and now they're doing well. But at that time, started making cigars with them, and the 1932 got in the top cigars of the year, and the Miami got in the top cigars of the year. And these cigars, after I left Pepin, also even got rated even higher. There was great stuff in them. I lost my way because I should have continued to make stuff in Miami. It was hard to find factories like that were still, do it. It was just Miami. A lot of the stuff that you'll see, these chinchales are like for tourists, and they just, very few of them even left. They don't really produce cigars that you can take on a national scale. Even the Padilla Miami, which you've had in here, we're talking 2,000 cigars. And there's people in that fact, now Cohiba's in there. Exactly what happened? I'm like, oh, is this a fucking repeat? My buddy Sean Williams, great guy, fantastic guy, doing great stuff. I don't blame him. Here comes the big company to do their thing. I got it. We were there for a second. We're still going to make cigars there, still going to do whatever. It's almost an affirmation. I'm like, oh, I keep fucking finding the right horse, and now you're going to whatever. I ain't building any factories unless it's the country I was born in and I left when I was 6 years old. And that's going to be a pain in the ass. And that will happen. But that's Cuba. Till then, if I'm still in the business. Till then, I like to work with different factories because I don't have that. It's a lot of shit.
You went from Aganorsa to Oliva briefly, right?
I also worked, no, actually, when I was with Ping, because these cigars were so expensive, that's right, $10 to $15 over almost 20 years. That was like that was a little ballsy for a fucking small. Who the fuck do you think you are? Like, yeah, these cigars, and people couldn't get enough.
And I don't want to toot my own horn here, but the fact that I know some of these things that you're even skipping out on, to any of the naysayers out there, like, I've studied this shit. I'm not just coming here showing up trying to, be this authority in cigars and not do my homework. So I did my homework, number one. Number two, all the
haters gonna hate.
Haters gonna hate.
No one loves to hate Brian more than me. I said it on the thing. I'll say it all over again.
But they love to say, "Oh, I'm rebranding." What the?
I ain't got. Look,
rebrand. How can I rebrand when you're making the cigar? I don't make the cigars. You know what I'm saying? Like, you guys make.
No, listen. I listen. I'm gonna be. I hate when I say. I'm gonna be honest. I don't even know. I just fucking. I don't even know if it's on. I just don't. That filter fell off a long time ago. I don't think I even came with one from the factory when I was born. So, I get it. Like, there's a new generation that's come up. I love the tradition of certain things. I love the whatever. I get it. You're like, but. And I'm like, this is like, what the fuck? Who cares about the garbage pail? Okay, really? Get out of here. But the cigar is good. So as long as, look, my good friend Jonathan Drew, like, if I didn't meet him or whatever, I would have said, who the fuck's this guy with this acid shit? I like flavored cigars, smoke a real cigar. He's a great guy, he's a great business guy, and what it did was it allowed a new generation to explore cigars, which is harder and harder today, because people won't vape, and they want to do, just left a meeting where they're, whatever, a retailer that sells other products and talking about White Claw. What the fuck is what? Seltzer? What the fuck is going on?
Right.
Am I that old already? Right. Like, I don't even know. Like, what happened to fucking whiskey and a beer?
What happened? How long did you make cigars?
So while I was there with Piping, I was like, hey, listen, Padilla, motherfucker, go back to where you were smoking cigars. You couldn't afford to smoke your own cigars that you're putting out all the time.
Right.
So, like, let's find a good company. And at the time, Oliva was not that well respected. It was a bundle company. They made cheap cigars. They had failed, like, trying to go high. The boom ended. Great people. And we came out with the Padilla Habano, $5. And it was great cigar.
But you also made the 32 in the Miami 8 and 11 there a couple of times.
No, not there. We made it with Raíces Cubanas, which was the factory that Aganorsa used before they got their own factory. That was Honduras. They got the number one cigar of the year with the Prensado.
Hugo was one of the best cigar makers in this business.
Yeah, most people don't know him or know that factory. He makes the Ilusione Epernay. Great factory. I know people, like, if it's located in Honduras, they're like, oh, I don't like Honduran or whatever. Most of this tobacco is like Nicaraguan or whatever. And by the way, Aladino, probably one of the best new brands that's come out. Very Cuban-esque, clean on the palate, very smooth, refined.
Puros.
I don't understand. Some of these new brands have started their own factory, and the shit is out of balance, out of whack. It's rough, It's rough. There's a guy who takes Porsche 911s, the 90 series, the last one before they were air cooled, Japanese guy.
Yeah.
And they look cool. The RWB, I think it's called.
He puts the kits on.
And people are like this and that about him. Because he, like, fucking tears out the fender. It's like an aesthetic thing. And I talked to someone who has, he's like, I go, how is it? It's fucking horrible to drive. I love how it looks, but it's horrible. It's like fucking the tire this big and this and that. It's like, if you're really into the 911, and the whole thing, you understand what it's about. You know, the rear engine, the thing, the mechanical. It's not even the fastest car. It's just what it brings out, the driving experience in it. And it's taken it away. And he extended the hips. He did all that. If you're real, like, into the Porsche thing and that kind of German engineering driving, it's not your thing. But I can understand how people could be drawn to it. And I think it looks cool and whatever. In this particular case, you know, I got to say, you're not taking off the fenders and doing all this where it's going to mess up the actual essence of the vehicle. So that part, I respect. There is no purity commission law. There is for fucking beer in Germany. You think that should say the purity law, and that's it? And fucking, you know. But, I mean, I've been on the fence. I was like, I don't like, you know, it's fucking bullshit with the fucking this and that and whatever. I'm like, who fucking cares? At the end of the day, I'm like, I'm not the fucking purist police.
So you go with Hugo.
Yeah.
And you make some of the, in my opinion, and now,
Yeah.
I wasn't there in the Pepin years. I've had a few of those cigars, but they're already 20 years old, so I don't know what they smoked like then. They were fantastic still, but to me, that's how I fell in love with Padilla, was the 1932 and the 8 and 11 at Hugo.
Yeah, a lot of people always think about Pepin, you know, because he originally made those. And believe it or not, those cigars got higher rating. I mean, look, one got a 93, and then the Hugo one got a 94. But I wasn't advertising in it. Their horses were actually more invested into lifting up a bang, who was not with Ashton doing all this advertising. But it was really good tobacco because it was that tobacco. You just made it on Honduras, and we did the whole thing. But when, I mean, Willie Herrera, he just kind of came from a different business. He was helping out his mother-in-law, Sandy Colba. Sandy, how are you? If you come down and see me, 8th Street and 11th Avenue. And they made terrible cigars. That shit tasted like fucking, it was horrible. And it wasn't that they weren't good people. They had Cuban rollers. They didn't have access to the good tobacco. And I remember Willie came, and I was going to try to do a factory on 8th Street. It was like the recession was happening. And John had sent me some nice bales of John and Drew of San Andreas, like top shit that a little place like that could never get. And then I said to them, I said, look, you need to talk to Eduardo Fernandez. I'm not saying I did all this, but helped in that direction, like I did with Pepin. Remember, these people just come over, right? Besides Eduardo, I wanted him to try the ASP, which a lot of people don't know about. Growers that has tremendous stuff. And tried that.
Just so a lot of the people out there understand, ASP is one of the biggest Dominican grower.
No, they mostly the wrapper, the Connecticut, Ecuador that you see is from them. It's and the hybrid that's on the Davidoff Millennium as ASP. A lot of the Fuente stuff's out of there, and then the best Ligero, one of their farms is in Nicaragua. They're under the radar, quiet guy, Alberto Silvio Perez. He came from Cuba. He went to Connecticut. He was an agronomist. You know, a lot of people think there's like this just artistic thing. There's a lot of science that goes into it. You know, magnesium, potassium, what goes in the soil. That's like next level shit. That's what these guys did in the hybrid of these seed strains, of taking them together. And some of that stuff sent to labs in Europe to avoid something called blue shank, blue mold, all this shit that can happen to tobacco as it goes, so you don't treat it with pesticides, and it doesn't affect the flavor so much. You can get like hardcore nerdy into all that crap. But
so let me ask you this: do you think that cigars have the potential now, with all the science and with all the experience that some of these people have been able to get under their belts, that cigars have the potential now to be better than they've ever been? Like, in other words, I've talked to some people like J.C. Newman, and they're like, the cigars off the shelf now are way better than they were 30 years ago.
Was I smoking 30 years ago? I mean, I remember stealing my dad's Cohiba at the time. I remember my dad's frustration. Lifelong cigar smoker. I mean, when he was detained by Castro in 1970, it's him in Time magazine, a picture of him with a cigar. That's what his whole life was about. Well, he was a right intellectual, but cigars were what he stuck with because of his family's lineage. But he would just be frustrated, or his friends would go to Europe and the Cuban tobacco wasn't there. Before he died, I got a chance in 2000 to sit down with him several times. I would pick him up after I worked at the ad agency. It was a great time. And go smoke a cigar with him. And he never got to see my company get started. A big part of the company, we see pictures of him with Hemingway or whatever, is an homage. If somebody came to me with this story, I would say this is like, if you don't know the story of Guinness beer, it's a tremendous story out of Ireland. Not besides the beer of what he did there or whatever. And it's kind of awkward sometimes, I feel, talking about this. But this family has a very interesting story. This Padilla family, almost taking me away from it, because it's so interconnected to the history of Cuba. And then Canary Islands, and then my father being who he was, and Castro, I have pictures of him with them. We knew since the revolution and the whole thing, and Che Guevara appointing a guy who, was an intellectual as the head of Ministry of Congress, the ridiculousness of it, and then coming to the United States and having the senator, or Reagan, which you can see on our Instagram, talking about our father. That's all great, but he was a very simple guy, loved cigars, and he said, I remember we smoked Padrones again, we smoked whatever. This is so much better when you're fighting in Cuba, and even in his time and whatever. And our farm's still there. I mean, one day you can go back to them, but the cigars are better than ever. I see a little bit of a dip. I'm not trying to sell anybody.
No, I do too.
In the quality in some of the other brands. Look, I'm not trying to toot anybody's horns. One of the reasons I went back with AJ is because what this motherfucker's done back in the day, that's like a 30-hour thing.
2 minutes.
But the number one thing is his access to his tobacco, the farms. He's reinvested the whole thing. There's a small factory I worked with that just came out with the Lost Chapter. They have great access to some Ometepe, some stuff, but I'm limited about how far I can pull the throttle.
I do want to talk about this real quickly. There is a dip here. There's no question about it. And I don't believe
a dip in the quality?
A dip in the quality. And it's not the whole industry. It's certain, I guess you guys call them chinchales. And they're in other countries, not necessarily here, and they're using tobaccos. I don't know enough, but my gut tells me they're either under fermented, they're skipping parts of the process. There's something up with the tobacco, because when I taste it, it zaps my fucking mouth for the whole day.
So there was I think you could find it out there as a thing. There was a point there in the mid 2000s, late 2000s, certain brands were undercuring the tobacco, and they did it by accident. And it was actually started in Cuba, because the tobacco there had to be rushed, because this became their big money source. Right now, a country that had huge sugarcane export, this and that, their fucking system so fucked up that all they had left was tobacco, which they're rushing and doing all this. Tobacco was coming out spicy, and by accident, the American audience didn't know. It's like, oh, this is no. When you've tasted a really properly cured cigar, you're not going to miss all that spice and shit. And now what I'm finding is a lot of over earthy, dirty spice, like rough, hit you in the back of the throat. It's not well processed. It's not well cured. It's like you shouldn't have to fight with a cigar. It shouldn't slap you around all the time. It should be refined. It's kind of like what I'm smoking. I'll be honest with you, not to your own horn on this, but and that classic slight sweet finish to me.
This has as much spice as you could want if you're retro.
That's it. Or that's another thing when people don't know how to smoke.
People don't know how to retrohale a cigar.
Right. So they, blowing it through your nose, doing that, or what really, just softly, just enough, and you can taste so much more of a cigar. And there's a little bit of a dip. We'll see what happens. We are in a different cigar boom. I don't think we're one of the things you're doing, which I think that's why the industry took notice, is you're bringing new smokers. Okay, which I feel it's been a little bit intimidating for new smoke. I'll give you an example real quick. I was in Lincoln Road, Miami Beach. It's just like pedestrian long way there, Miami Beach, and there's a farmer's market and all that. I was with my wife at the time. I see this young guy. He's kind of like following me. I'm like, what the fuck's this motherfucker doing? Okay, stay out of here. And hey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but are you Ernesto Padilla? And I go, this motherfucker gonna try to sue me? Is it like a thing, or was he? What? Yeah. He goes, man, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I love your cigars. I'm like, oh, cool. Now you're like, yeah. Everybody's got a fucking ego. It feels good when you're sweating your ass off in a fucking warehouse, 20 years, got your ass punched in, kicked upside down, that some fucking guy, 25 years old, says, I like your fucking cigars. It means a fucking lot. I think anybody would appreciate it. And I said, oh, really? Where do you at? He's like, well, actually, I'm a Pravada Cigar Club member. I'm like, oh, really? How long you been smoking? He's like, not too long, man. I tried a while back. I felt like this. He was basically saying that he felt a little bit, I don't think intimidated because he was a pussy, but just like he wasn't getting what he wanted to, was to try different brands. He wasn't being steered properly. And the atmosphere, if sometimes when you go to these lounges, it's like there's 4 dudes, it's like, it's right, they ain't gonna approve, but you're gonna smoke some. Well, fucking take it, right? You know? And it's like, nobody fucking, this is not like where you go to meet hot chicks. This is not like, it's not like sometimes very sexy. It doesn't look like Davidoff stores where you don't know if you're buying a Rolex or you're buying a cigar. I'm like, I'm confused here with these Swiss people. And, you know, like a nice place, but it doesn't have to be, and it felt, I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like, this guy's really, you know, picking up, and now I know there's this club and there's that club, and, you know, there's a lot of them out there. And you know, we started at the beginning, and now I see, oh, look at all that. Some of it, you know, I dig. Some of it's whatever. But overall, I think you've made an effort to bring stuff that's interesting, and some stuff's not in my style. But I think you picked up on the cigars that we were doing before anybody, you know, was like, fuck, man, how are you not like here? Like, how are you not like, you know, all this? There's so much bullshit, so much politics, so much whatever. Hype is never, even though it came from marketing or whatever world, it's very bizarre in the cigar world. It's like little high school cliques sometimes. It's, I don't understand it.
Well, listen, man, bottom line is Padilla always has an open door to Pravada. You helped us get started. You just have to be, you know, a little bit flexible with me.
Yeah, I'm a good guy. Look, I am who I am. I mean, I'm trying. I can read all the whatever books. I've never read a business book.
That's my point. You're a family member.
I appreciate
no matter what, there will always be a door.
Well, no, I actually enjoy my, you know, believe it or not, I enjoy my conversation. I've heard like different things, you know, now where people are just kind of, for lack of a better term, hating. I think there's maybe, I think there were some things like, look, when we first started, I think you were also getting your feel of like pushing, like you did a 1932 Corona. It would have been impossible to sell that to stores. Most stores, I don't really sell Coronas or whatever.
We have trouble too.
But you're like, are you sure I can put, I'm like, dude, just put it in there. Let's try it, whatever. And a lot of people just
amazing cigar.
Really enjoyed it.
Corona's one of the most classic size of cigars, period. It's one of the best.
You got to try something. I mean, this is what JFK smoked. You know, this is whatever. And the problem with is that it's almost as expensive as a bigger cigar because it's just labor and the length of it. It's so those are the challenges. I hope that if anything, Churchills come back and Coronas come back and maybe even some torpedoes and some other stuff like that come back. You know, I think the big ring gauge is so limiting. Once you go above. Really 54, yeah. It's like, you know, I don't even like the I don't like doing the 6x60s. I hate 6x60s. I think it's...
There's a few good ones. A few
yeah,
out of thousands.
Listen, I force myself to smoke. I find out where we have them and whatever. And they're good. But I go, you're missing out on the other, like you're missing, like even try to throw like that in those blends in a Corona, Petite Corona, or, you know, 5 5/8 by 46 would be amazing. So it's our job to... I don't know if it's our job. I think it is our job because
to steer the market.
Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, this is a.
But that's the beauty of Pravada is it's your job to steer the people that smoke your cigars where you want them to, just the same way it is for Rainier or for, you know, whoever else. And that's where Pravada comes in to give that sampling size of each.
Look, I make cigars in different price points. I sell millions of cigars like the Padilla Fumas. It's an expensive cigar, $1.50. It's made of rices cubanas. The Devil's website, whatever, you know, like, oh, hey, you got to keep this shit going, you know what I mean? Fiat owns Ferrari. Ferrari does not own Fiat.
Right.
You know, it's a volume game or whatever. But, you know, the stuff at that factory that they were making, I'm like, I can't put my name on it.
$1.50, I mean, it's crazy.
But the original blend or whatever, and they're like, hey, what do you think? I'm like, this is horrible. I said, they're like, there's no way the Rices could do it for the specials. Let me work on that.
Yeah.
And we did, and what you get is the prime cuts of that. And I don't take that away. We came out with something for Europe. It's done very well. We sold to Israel. We sold whatever. I think you're going to see, look, just because something is long filler does not make it better also. And that's a different world, and I know you don't play with so much in that world. I think taxation, some things are coming down the line. I think this is great. there's a whole new audience being exposed to cigars. The industry has kind of found its space. We have some challenges up ahead, but I think it'll be fine. I mean, I don't know. I haven't asked you. What do you see?
I don't know. I have no idea. So I focus on just the present and the next 12 months. And for me, it was the last 4 years have been exactly what you just talked about. It's been just like opening a factory. It's been weeding my way from brand to brand to brand, blender, to find out who we believe has the best stuff. The unique thing about Pravada is the way we find who has the best stuff is not just me, my ego, and my taste saying it. It's the constant communication with our members saying, no, we know. When we put something in the box and it ding, 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 we know. Dude, have you seen all the posts on this cigar? We know, so then we know, okay, let's focus there. Now, is it the brand or is it the blender? Let's find out. Because when Padilla does a cigar, I could go to a factory that I hate everything they do, and then I could send you to that factory to make a cigar there, and it's a total different cigar. So there are brands that bring the blender craft to it.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, there's only...
So that's why I'm saying every year this thing should get better and better and better. Like 2022, we're coming up, dude. I have most of the cigars bought, and they are, I mean, these are just some of the best cigars. You're smoking the quality
nice.
of the kind of stuff that we're going to get. So I'm very, very excited. I'm not thrilled about, you know, what's going to happen legally, but, you know, so far we've been like a fucking great running back out there, ducking and diving and dodging and, you know.
Yeah, they want to tax this industry, you know. If you're a cigar smoker, unfortunately, it's horrible to say, but on top of it, we need your help. You know, when you go to CRA, when you do, you know, hit the fucking button and write out your name on a petition. It takes 5 seconds, just that. We're not asking you for the money, because if there's no pushback, they'll just steamroll this. And they think every cigar smoker is driving around in a Bentley and a Ferrari, and that's it. When it's just an average guy enjoying the hobby, taking a break from his wife, taking a break from his girlfriend.
And so we also need to enjoy them now while we can, while they're not $20 a piece.
Yeah.
And I believe that regardless of what happens, I think that this moment in time for Pravada members will be legendary. I think the same way we're talking about Padron and Pepin and all you guys will be talking about Pravada in 10, 20 years from now, God willing. And I just hope that everyone knows that, look, yes, of course, we're all here to make a living for our families. We all have to feed our families. This is business. But I was fortunate enough, just like most people in the cigar industry, that I can make decisions based on the craft, not just making a buck. If it's going to cost me more to get a better cigar, I'll do that just because I want to be remembered with that legendary status of, you know, the ultimate curation thing for cigars. So, I mean, you know, not to give my personal information, but my other business paid for my house. Like this was Pravada's icing on the cake. That's why every single dollar we made has gone back. You've seen how much we've grown in 4 years. You can't do this without taking millions of dollars in bank loans and stuff. Fortunately for us, we didn't have to do that. We just kept putting everything back in, and that's where you see all these things. Most of this stuff hasn't even come out yet. You know, so
I'm giving this away.
You're not giving that
to the
away.
first buyer for whom the bells tolls, along with this shoe that was left over from Michael
What do you
Jordan.
think about this? This guy's amazing. He's an artist from Chicago. He's a club member. And Ben,
yeah.
we have a cigar coming out with him.
Uh-oh.
We're doing the artist series with him.
Oh, nice.
So anyway, man, dude, Padilla, I appreciate you coming in
Yeah,
here.
thanks
Even
for
though you
having
didn't
me.
come up here just for us. I know.
No, it's worth it. It was good. It's great to see how much it's grown. I remember the calls. You know, we've had our things, difference, whatever. Hopefully, you know, you get to try some of the new stuff we got coming on the thing, and whatever. At least shut the shit and bored probably some people falling asleep in an airport lounge listening to this, you know, stories. But
No, this is great, man. Thank you so much for being here.
all right, bro. Be
Peace.
well.